Today's segment will continue our talk about World War II. Please make sure you're keeping up with edmodo.com for your assignments, that you're on my website for any notes that you may need. You can find a link to this Prezi at my website. Also, make sure that you're using YouTube to catch up with any lectures that you may have missed. When we talked in the last segment, we talked about the attack on Pearl Harbor. You were able to use the Prezi to view a video about the attack. The same day as the attack, Japan will also take the islands of Guam and Wake Island to gain access to oil reserves and access as stop-off points in the Pacific. From there, they will take control of the Philippines. Philippines should have two P's right there. That's my fault. And there, they will conduct what's called the Bataan Death March on the Bataan Peninsula. And at that point, what happens is the American forces, who were led by Douglas MacArthur, are left there. Douglas MacArthur will leave, and he will promise, "I shall return," to his troops. Unfortunately, they are tortured, they starve, they're executed by the Japanese. The Japanese look down on prisoners of war, anybody that surrendered, and therefore they themselves did not do it. So the Japanese have victories early on in the war. But the Americans are able to have a moral victory in the bombing of Japanese cities, especially that of what's called Doolittle's Raid, where a colonel by the name of Jimmy Doolittle is going to be able to go over and bomb important cities in Japan. And although the bombings themselves are not successful, the Japanese people understand that America can and will bomb them. And that was something that proved to the Japanese people that they're not as invincible as they had thought. America will quickly turn the tide of war, however. They're able to work with the Australians to stop the Japanese from setting up to further advance their position in the Pacific. And at the Battle of the Coral Sea, the Americans are able to stop the Japanese along with the Australians from gaining an advantage to where they would eventually have invaded Australia and taken over there. Following that, we have the Battle of Midway. And Midway Island is literally midway in the Pacific between the continents of Asia and North America. And this was the first naval battle in which the ships did not see one another. It was mainly conducted all through air warfare, through dogfighting. The Americans are able to hold on to that with some little cunning strategy that they used. They sent out a fake message and intercepted a Japanese message, decoded it, and realized what islands specifically the Japanese were wanting to attack, and then cut them off and were able to beat them at it. Now, from there, Douglas MacArthur, as I told you, he's the commander of the land forces in the Pacific. He will come up with a strategy that's called island hopping. In this island hop strategy, they're going to go from one island to the next and eventually get closer to the island of, get closer to the Japan so that they can stage an invasion later on in the war. They knew that they needed to invade Japan in order to win the war. One example of one of these island hop strategy battles is the Battle of Guadalcanal. And what resulted from this brutal campaign, was it showed that the Japanese had a very unwilling to surrender. They were willing to die in battle, and in fact, they believed that they would be considered godlike if they were to die in battle. That they would be heroes for doing that. So that kind of gives you the mindset of the Japanese, and that plays a vital role later on. Over back towards the European theater, the Allies are going to gain momentum. They are going to go down into North Africa, and they are going to defeat Erwin Rommel, and he's known as the Desert Fox. He was the leader of the Afrika Korps, which was the German army in Africa. And he was considered a hero by German citizens, but he was very respected by Allied generals as well for being a very seasoned, very experienced, a very good general. And so when they're able to beat him, they really gain momentum and gain North Africa. And from there, they can prepare to go to Italy. While that's going on, the Soviets are able to win the Battle of Stalingrad and push the Germans back. And the German army has weakened to this point after numerous losses in the Soviet Union. After that, the Allies, who now have a stronghold in North Africa, are going to invade Italy. They're first going to capture the island of Sicily. Then from there, they'll launch the invasion of Italy. Mussolini will be captured by his own people. He'll be overthrown. He'll be killed. And that signals the beginning of the end for fascism in Italy. Now that the Allies have momentum, they will plan to invade France and gain back that territory. They already have Hitler and the Germans kind of cornered from the east and from the south, but now they're going to really take advantage by taking over, taking back France. They plan to invade the French town of Normandy, and this is called Operation Overlord. And it's known to us as D-Day, and that's a military terminology that means the day of the attack. And the day of this attack was June 6, 1944, and it is the largest land and sea attack in history. And there are hundreds of thousands of Allied troops involved in it, and there are thousands of lives lost. Most famously represented in the movie Saving Private Ryan. If you've seen that, you can understand just the tragedy that a lot of it was, and just how severe the fighting was for that period of time. What ultimately ends up happening is the Allies are going to seize the beaches of Normandy, and from there they're going to start to work their way back across France and force the Germans out of France. Germany will have a two-front war, essentially a three-front war if you include the South. And with this, they will give one last final offensive to the west, and that's what's called the Battle of the Bulge. And it's called the Battle of the Bulge because the lines never broke, but they did bulge into the west. But the Allies were able to hold and push the Germans back, and from there, it's the beginning of the end for the Germans. As the Allies approach Germany from the west, the Soviets will approach from the east, and from there, Hitler will be holed up in a basement. He will ultimately commit suicide, and 1 week later, Germany will surrender. We mark this day as VE Day, or Victory in Europe. In our next segment, in our final segment, we're going to look at how the Japanese are forced to surrender and the actions that the Allies and the Americans took to get that. Please make sure you're keeping up with your Edmodo assignments, you're watching these on YouTube, and that you're keeping up to date with my website for any notes and calendar events that are approaching.